There is a lot of breaking news since we last saw you. Jeremy Pruitt and Philip Fulmer are both out up on Knoxville. We will get in here and discuss all of that with the ESPN writer Chris Lowe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we give you all of the details on what's going on right now up at Rocky Top, only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn.
Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee! They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium! Are you kidding me? My God almighty! What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game! What a play! Wow!
Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and we are really excited to get on and talk about the latest news up at Rocky Top. So without further ado, let me go on ahead and bring in my co-host, Heath. Heath, how are you doing today, sir?
Stephen, doing wonderful after a long holiday weekend. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. And right down there, obviously, yesterday we had breaking news that Jeremy Pruitt has been fired at Tennessee with cause. So without further ado, let's go on ahead and bring in a guy who is very close to the situation because he actually lives up there in Knoxville. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very blessed to have back on the show the one and only Chris Lowe of ESPN. Chris, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you guys.
Thank you for joining us, Chris. Chris, let's talk about the development. I want to talk about Philip Fulmer first. Was that a little bit of a shocker to you? And what's the latest on that situation?
Well, the latest is, he's retiring. And it was a surprise. I wouldn't call it a shocker. I don't think he really ever saw himself as being an AD here for a long period of time. He's 70 years old right now.
Right.
And, I know when he got the job or when he came in at 17, his goal was to try to see the football program get back to, being relevant. I mean, people talk about it being elite, just being relevant again. It's been a long time since Tennessee's been relevant in football. And certainly he didn't sit in it like this. I think it came down to the fact that the chancellor was going to make sweeping changes and move on from Jeremy Pruitt because of their investigation, the results. And I think Fulmer felt like, you know what, there probably needs to be somebody else that leads the athletic department. And if there's going to be someone coming in new as head football coach, the new AD needs to be one to hire and not me. And I think that's why, as he and the chancellor discussed it, felt like what was best for not only for the university, but for Philip Fulmer, that was probably the best way to do it. And, I think it wouldn't have been the way he would have picked to go out. I can tell you that. Somebody that's been associated with the university for pretty much his entire adult life as a player, assistant coach, a head coach, and now AD. But it probably is the right thing to do. The Tennessee needs to sort of wipe the slate clean, bring in somebody else who's going to be the AD and run the athletic department, and that's got to be the guy who hires his guy as a football coach.
Chris, we know you're super busy. Again, thank you so much for joining us. What is the latest as far as the AD search go? Are they going to complete the AD search before we start doing a coaching search?
Yes, that's the plan. They want to bring in an AD. They've hired the Parker search firm to do that, to sort of identify that, 3-4 candidates and sort of narrow that down and pick out who they feel like is the best fit at Tennessee, and then let them hire the head football coach. And that's really the only way to do it, because you can't – I know everybody wants the head coach on campus right now, no matter what school it is, but it's really impossible to let the chancellor or whoever else hire a coach and then bring in an AD who's going to be his boss afterward. It's got to be the other way around, because the head coach has got to feel like that the person he's working for is his boss, the guy that he can talk with and communicate with, and they can work in concert together. So I think that's what's going to happen. And I would not look for a head coach to be hired at Tennessee until probably sometime in February.
Wow.
Probably before, I'd say certainly before the end of February, but maybe mid-February, if not earlier. And there'll be some candidates. I don't think they'll have a huge pool because of the timing and the fact that whoever comes in to Tennessee is almost certainly going to face some sanctions from the NCAA. And the other thing is, coaches get settled in this time of year. They don't want to move around. And I think when you look at Tennessee's program from afar, if you've got an established job and you're making pretty good money, most of the Power 5 guys, this is probably something right now, an undertaking that they don't want to get involved in.
Chris, are you surprised at how quick this happened for Tennessee? Because earlier, when they started the year, I think they were on a 8-game winning streak, and now at the end of the season, they've lost their coach and their AD, and they're facing NCAA sanctions. Are you surprised at how quickly this all turned around?
Well, you know what? If you cover the SEC and you're around the SEC long enough, you really aren't surprised by anything. And you're certainly not surprised when things change swiftly. I always used to say that the winds have changed, blow pretty swiftly in the SEC. I mean, you go back to Auburn. Gene Chizik won a national championship in 2010. I think he was out as head football coach in 2012.
Yeah,
13. You're right. I mean, Tennessee under Pruitt had won 6 straight games in the 2019 season. They beat a really good Indiana team in the bowl game. They were recruiting, according to the rankings, the investigation, the university's investigation that started in November, so sort of toward the end of the season. And it actually that investigation lingered longer than I thought it would.
Right.
But, I mean, they had a lot of things they had to get to. They wanted to make sure they did it as completely as they possibly could. And I think it's probably worth noting that the Chancellor, Donnie Plowman, said yesterday that the investigation is not complete. They're still looking into things and talking to people. So I wouldn't say that this is completely over for Tennessee, certainly not from an NCAA perspective, but even from the review that was initiated in-house by the university.
Chris, I heard a golfer once say, and I can't remember if it was Arnold Palmer or Jack or Greg Norman or who, but they said the best thing to do when you get in trouble is to get out of trouble as quick as you can. And that looks like what Tennessee has done with this NCAA investigation is let's get out of trouble as quickly as we can. They hired a law firm to represent them. They did their investigation themselves. They found some things. They cleaned house. This report of the McDonald's bags of money coming out that Dan Patrick referred to this morning on his show. I don't know if the owner of the local McDonald's chains in the Knoxville area is a Tennessee alum, but what is the story on the money in the McDonald's bags, and what do you know about the investigation, the internal investigation of sanctions coming out?
Yeah, the only thing I know about McDonald's bags is McDonald's has pretty good French fries, so I can't weigh in too much on that, because I mean, honestly, I'm being joking around with you guys. I don't know anything about that. I mean, I can tell you that there's multiple violations involved here. 20, 30, 40, 50, there's a lot.
Wow.
And we heard the chancellor herself say yesterday that, there were multiple level 1 violations, which are the worst, according to the NCAA. She used words like astonishing. She's talked about just the number of violations and the number of people involved. So clearly this wasn't 1 or 2 people. I mean, they fired, 10 people, counting Jeremy Pruitt? So pretty widespread along the department. And I think Tennessee is banking on the fact, there's a lot of different philosophies on how you handle these things. And there's the old cliche when you're in the court that you throw yourself to the mercy of the court. I think Tennessee is sort of throwing itself at the mercy of the NCAA here. That, listen, We've acted swiftly. We've fired a bunch of people. We've fired our head football coach. We've done an exhaustive report. Here's the details of everything we've uncovered. We're handing it over to you guys. We're not trying to cover up anything. We're not trying to make it sound, not as bad as we think it is. But here's everything on a silver platter. Hopefully, you won't just completely slam us. Now, I think Tennessee's looking at sanctions regardless.
Right.
I think you'll probably see them get at least 1 year postseason ban. They're going to lose some postseason ban. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world because I don't know how good Tennessee will be anyway next year. And we're coming off a COVID year. I mean, how many bowls are going to be even next year? But where you really sort of cut into the guts of the program is if you take away a lot of scholarships. And this is a program that's already, let's be honest, it's going to be a tough uphill struggle for whoever comes in here as a head coach.
Yes.
Sort of building back from the ashes. And if you have to do that with half the number of scholarships that Georgia and Bama and LSU and Florida and all the schools you're trying to beat have, well, that really makes it a tough mountain to climb.
Well, let's get into some of the candidates. Who do you feel like could be the next head coach on Rocky Top? Could they potentially reach out to Coach Freeze, or are they kind of want to steer clear of that and go in another direction?
Well, Freeze would make a lot of sense. I mean, he's a good football coach, and he's done an unbelievable job at Liberty. He really has, and is done it in the SEC. I mean, how many people on the planet have beaten Nick Saban in back-to-back years?
Right.
I can count them on one hand in college football. Probably wouldn't even need one hand. But I do think because of Freeze's issues at Ole Miss and the fact that when he left Ole Miss, they were on probation, it's hard for me to see Tennessee firing a coach for cause and saying that there are multiple violations involved and then bringing in a coach, again, fairly or unfairly to Coach Freeze, but bringing in a coach that was in the SEC and left the SEC at a school that was on probation. That to me would be a very, very difficult thing to do for Tennessee.
Yes.
Chris, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I said from the very get-go, I was like, Freeze is not going to be in play on this, not because he's not a great coach, because we've seen several times, we've all heard the stories that Nick Saban wanted to bring him in, and the SEC kind of stepped in, and that was, an off the field assistant in a role with Alabama. And then, we've seen other schools trying to do it, and we don't know for a fact. We've all heard the rumors, like you, I'm sure, that South Carolina, we've heard that the SEC office is like, we don't need to bring Freeze in. And I was told Stephen, I said, hey, if South Carolina can't hire him and Auburn can't hire him and Vanderbilt can't hire him, and then all of a sudden Tennessee can, now there's going to be a problem with the schools. But I got a great feeling Hugh Freeze will not even be interviewed for the Tennessee job, not because he's not a great coach, because I think he is a great coach, and I believe in second chances. But that whole situation is kind of blown up. But is it safe to say that with the athletic director coming in, whoever that might be, they will sit down and have their list of candidates? But is there anybody on the dream wish list right now of Tennessee fans that might add up to the whoever candidate that we have as athletic director? I mean, we're kind of dealing with a lot of moving parts with no answers in sight.
I just think you've got to be realistic. If you're Tennessee, certainly you'll kick the tires with people and reach out to see who might be interested. You never know until you try.
Right.
But I think if you weigh everything, the fact it's so late in the year that Tennessee's going to be facing sanctions, that most of the last few coaches Tennessee's had, they've either fired or it hasn't ended well. Right. That there are going to be a lot of guys that, just don't even name a name, but, Joe Power 5 head coach who's established, right, making good money. Is this a job that you're going to want to get involved with right now? So for Tennessee, maybe they have to get creative. Maybe they have to give somebody, maybe a younger coach, an up-and-coming coach, a shot, or find maybe an NFL guy, a guy that just has left the NFL, is looking to maybe get back into college football. And maybe there is that coach out there that's not completely content, that nobody really knows about at his job, that wants to sort of give it a shot and try to come back and restore Tennessee to its past glory. But it's been a long time. You look at Tennessee, and I think if you look at it from a scope of the last 40 years, then for a lot of people, Tennessee is one of those quote-unquote blue blood programs. But the kids that you're recruiting right now, in high school, kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old, they don't remember a time when Tennessee was an elite program.
Right.
I mean, the kid that's a 17-year-old quarterback right now, he knows Peyton Manning from when he played in the NFL, but he doesn't remember Peyton Manning playing college football. And that's tough, when you have 20 years basically that you've not been relevant. That makes it a hard job. And I think the other thing you look at is who are you recruiting against geographically? Kirby's tearing it up in Georgia. You got Dabo Swinney over the Carolinas. Mac Brown is back now in North Carolina. Nick Saban is all over the Southeast. Everywhere you look around Tennessee, it's really, really tough sledding recruiting-wise. So this is a tough job for a lot of reasons. That said, I still think if you get the right person, you get somebody who's truly vested in Tennessee, who understands they're going to have to come in here and roll their sleeves up and do things the right way and really galvanize the Tennessee people, because it's been a fragmented fan base now for a long time. But to galvanize the Tennessee people and do it, just I sort of had a saying here the last couple of days: be Tennessee and not try to be,
right.
do Alabama or be anybody else, but sort of be Tennessee like they were in the 90s when they had going into Coach Fuller. Then that's not to say this job can't get back to being a good job and Tennessee can't get back to being a top 20 program currently, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, you talk about galvanizing the fan base and whatnot. Do you kind of feel like Gus Malzahn may be a kind of guy to do that, or do you feel like with him being fired at Auburn that maybe he wouldn't bring that spark that the fans would like?
No, I don't think Tennessee will, just because somebody's been fired, right. I don't think that will be a deal breaker for Tennessee. I mean, Gus certainly has been a coach in the SEC, and he's done it at a high level. He's played for championships. Is he a fit at Tennessee? I don't know, but right. it may be somebody like that.
Yes. That
Tennessee has to go get. Maybe someone who's been here, who's now out of a job. Lane Kiffin had been fired by the Raiders when Tennessee hired him.
Yes.
In 2009. I mean, Rick Barnes, it's a different sport. Rick Barnes had been fired by Texas in basketball. I'd say Rick Barnes has been he's probably been the biggest president ever dropped in Tennessee's lap.
Yes.
What he's done on the basketball court. Now, it's two different sports. I get that. But again, I think you got to find somebody that's a fit, somebody that wants to be here, somebody that's hungry, somebody understands the SEC, how to recruit in the SEC, understands Tennessee, and just the SEC's different. It really is. I mean, it's just it's different than any other conference in the country. And what's the old saying that some coaches and some teachers aren't for everybody? Well, the SEC is not for every coach.
Yes.
Right. You got to get that guy who's willing to sort of juggle all you got to juggle, deal with the scrutiny, deal with all the things you have to deal with on the outside, and just coach football and recruit and develop kids and not worry about all the rest of the stuff. And sometimes that's hard to find.
Yes.
Other than the money in McDonald's bags, what other major violations are we looking at for Tennessee?
No, I think it's all recruiting related. I think it's unofficial visits, allegations of bringing kids on, doing things during the dead period, extra benefits, meals, hotel rooms, I think there's a little bit of everything. And, because it's been dead now for a while as far as recruiting. Kids can still come on campus, but they got to do it on their own dime.
Right.
I think the other bad optic for Tennessee is, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. And, if some of these allegations are true, and you're dealing with kids, meeting with kids, what have you, during a pandemic when you're not, when we're not supposed to be doing anything, that probably makes it even worse, from a lot of people's perspective. And there are two sides to every story, and I think that's why we saw yesterday that Jeremy Pruitt has retained an attorney. They're going to fight this. They're certainly going to fight to get back what they feel like they're owed from Tennessee, which is his $12 million buyout. Maybe this goes to court. I can't imagine that either side really wants it to go to court, because you start deposing everybody and it really gets ugly. It just becomes a bloody fist fight. And it could drag on, and I think Jeremy probably wants to coach football again. And I think if you're in a bloody, drawn-out court battle suing your previous employer, especially if you've got some baggage with the NCAA hanging on you, it's going to be harder and harder to get back into coaching again. So we'll see what happens. They may settle. I don't think we will know that for a while.
Well, where do you feel like that Jeremy Pruitt will go from here? I know you've probably been asked this a million times this week, but Nick Saban, Coach Saban in Alabama usually take in former coaches and do all that. But with the baggage now that Jeremy Pruitt has, do you feel like Alabama will look at that and say, oh, no, we do not want to bring you on?
Well, I think a lot of it's going to depend on what type of sanctions or show cause that Jeremy gets.
Right.
We're probably just speculating right now. I'm sure he's going to get some type of penalties.
Yes.
From the NCAA. And, is it a 1 year? Is it a 2 years? Is it multi-year? I mean, I don't know. Much like our discussion earlier about Hugh Freeze, would he be, would there sort of the unofficial word be put out that they don't want him back in the SEC anytime soon? That's a possibility. But Jeremy's too good a coach. I mean, he's a good football coach. And there are a lot of people out there who would want him on their staff. Maybe the NFL. I could see him being certainly a possibility in the NFL. Maybe he serves his time, per se, and gets a shot elsewhere in college football. I don't think anytime soon. You never say never. But I don't think anytime soon we're going to see him. When I say soon, a year or two or more, that we're going to see him back in the SEC.
Chris, we keep seeing Tennessee in the headlines. Seems like every 6 months, it seems like there's some kind of dramatic situation going on up at Rocky Top. And here we go again. We're starting it all over again, with Jeremy Pruitt and the NCAA and all this. If I'm not mistaken, is there only a single coach left, and that'd be Kevin Steele, that's on staff that can recruit currently? But what does Tennessee do right now as far as recruiting and everything when you basically get down to a single coach?
No, they have several guys still on staff.
Okay.
Jay Graham still on staff. Derek Ansley, the defensive coordinator, still on staff. Kevin Steele, you mentioned Kevin. He's the acting head coach right now. Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator, is still there. So they still have it's a skeleton staff, but it's not certainly not a staff in its entirety. But they still have guys. They haven't shut it down. Okay. They're trying to hold this thing together. I think Kevin Steele is one of those guys that will be able to do that. Where has he not coached? I mean, he's coached for Bobby Bowden, for Tom Osborne, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Les Miles. I mean, he's been everywhere, every conference. So, and Tennessee's his school, which I think that's something that is important. So I think having him in place was a good move to be able to step in and try to hold it together. I think he will receive some consideration for the permanent head job. I won't say he's the favorite or anything like that, because I don't know how that's going to play out. But I do think he will get serious consideration. But I mean, it's just it's been a tough decade or more for Tennessee football. I mean, I think for Tennessee fans, what frustrates them is that it's just sort of seemingly been a revolving door of coaches and ADs and presidents and just very little sustained success on the field. Butch Jones caught a lot of crap from fans and some of the media. And sometimes he was his own worst enemy by some of the slogans and some of the goofy things he'd say. But you know what? He won 9 games in back-to-back years. And you look back at that now, I mean, that doesn't look too bad. He beat Georgia. He beat Florida. He won some bowl games. Sometimes, this is a lesson for a lot of fan bases, not just Tennessee. Sometimes you ought to be careful what you wish for.
Right. We've seen some probation and things come up in the past few years here in the SEC. I mean, Ole Miss here just recently, they went with a guy with Matt Luke to kind of be the stopgap guy, to bring in things. And I don't know what the interest level was for that Ole Miss job, but I do know they went and hired one of their own to come in there. Same thing as you see in some other places. Mississippi State a couple of years ago, before Dan Mullen, they brought in Kroom to kind of clean house and kind of put house in order off the field before they start putting things on the field. Does Tennessee fans need to understand that we've got a huge mess? We've got to get things in order first off the field before we get them in order on the field. And will Tennessee fans be acceptable to that with the new AD hire?
I mean, I don't know if they'll be acceptable. I mean, I think like every fan base, you're going to have fans who feel like that it's their God-given right to get every major coach, to come interview for the job. I mean, Tennessee, for years and years, they thought they were going to get John Gruden. But, there's a lot of schools like that. Schools, there's a lot of passion in the SEC. You guys know that.
Yes.
But I think it's important to be realistic here. And you mentioned, and those are good analogies. The situation in Mississippi State, they brought in Sly Kroom, and in a lot of ways, he sort of disinfected that place and set the stage a little bit for Dan Mullen. He did some of the dirty work, the heavy lifting that needed to be done. And I think at Ole Miss, you're right, Matt came in at a tough time, and it's not like he won championships and won a ton of games, but he also did some things that had to be done. And sometimes it takes that bridge coach or whatever you want to call it to do that, because it's never easy when you come into a situation where you're facing NCAA sanctions and have to deal with all those things. But whoever comes in, I can promise you, they're going to come in with their eyes wide open, because they're going to know what they're facing. I do think the Tennessee brand is still strong enough to where some people, probably more than any of us, including me, are giving them credit for, will look at it because it's Tennessee. And much like UCLA in basketball, there's a lot of coaches out there in their 50s and 60s. Rick Barnes flirted with the UCLA job last year, and they look at that and say, you know what? How cool would it be to go into a place like that and restore a place like that to its past glory? And maybe Tennessee finds something like that from the football version that says, you know what, Tennessee, I saw what they were in the 90s, and when Coach Majors were there toward his campaign, and, all those great years with Peyton Manning and Al Wilson. I think from 95 to 98, Tennessee was 45-5 with 2 SEC championships and a national championship. Coaches look back and say, they've done it before. It is possible. Maybe I could be the one to go in there and return them to their past glory. A lot easier said than done, though.
And actually, I think Heath had a question for you about another Tennessee fan up there in Memphis.
Oh, what are you referring to, Stephen? As far as
Clay.
Oh, you're talking about Clay Travis. We were talking before the show about Clay Travis's passion for Tennessee. Have you heard from Clay? And what kind of job do you think Clay would do? What kind of coach do you think Clay would bring in? Of course, we're joking about this, but Clay kind of speaks the volumes of what a lot of Tennessee fans think and say. But Chris, you've got your ear on everything there. What do you think the fans want? Of course, I know they want a Nick Saban-like head coach to come in and dominate and win championships, but what are some names being floated around that the fans want, not necessarily what the school is saying?
Well, first of all, I think Clay would probably do about like I would do as head coach, which would probably be not very well. That's my most honest answer about that. Listen, like I said a minute ago, guys, fans want, they want Parcells and Belichick and Saban and every fan base does. But I think Tennessee fan, you mentioned Freeze. I think a lot of fans would like to have Freeze. I don't think that's realistic. You'll hear some say, hey, they'd love to have Lane Kiffin back as head coach. I don't know how realistic that is. I think Lane would probably listen to him. Probably he would listen. I think, more than anything, I think somebody that's going to come in and restore the passion, and probably somebody who's offensive minded. Because you look at Tennessee over the last couple of years, they've been stagnant offensively. Somebody can develop a quarterback, somebody can evaluate quarterbacks, coach quarterbacks, somebody that's got a pretty good feel for the way offense is played in this day and age. Can spread the field, can run, can maybe a little RPO, do a little bit of everything. You look at the way Bama has evolved offensively.
Yes.
Over the last several years under Saban. But a coordinator who maybe is a little bit outside the box, because it's going to take a while for Tennessee to get the kind of athletes on offense where you're just line up and you're better than everybody in front of you. That doesn't happen with 1 or 2 signing classes. So you better have a little bit of a niche and be able to do some things and move the football and score some points in other ways than just being bigger and faster and stronger than the people you're going up against.
And my last question for you is this: getting off of Tennessee, how do you feel like Urban Meyer will do in the NFL down in Jacksonville?
Well, he'll put together a great staff. Urban's very organized, very, very driven, competitive. You know, I always felt like if Urban ever got back into football, it would be pro football. I don't think he wants to deal with some of the things in college ball now, the way it's changed, and, you know, compliance issues, player issues. I mean, there's just so much in college football recruiting. But I think Urban has proven everywhere he's been, he's won everywhere. So I know that college coaches don't always translate to NFL and vice versa. And a lot of it's timing. You know, he's going to get his choice, whoever he thinks is the best player in the draft. That's always a good way to start. You know, if it's a quarterback, if it's Trevor Lawrence, I mean, it's a quarterback's game more than ever. So I think that helps him. But knowing Urban as I do, it's hard to see him not having success.
Yes.
Chris, I guess my last question for you is pretty basic and pretty simple. Is Tennessee going to become elite again? I know we've all heard the scenarios of why Tennessee's not elite, because they used to be one of the few teams that played on television almost every weekend, and now everyone plays on television. You know, they used to be a hot recruiting bed, and they had pipelines to California and every other state they chose. But that's not a situation anymore. What does Tennessee got to do to be elite again, and is that going to happen with this hire?
You know, a lot of fan bases ask that question. I think Nebraska's been asking that for a while.
Yeah.
Texas has been asking that for a while. Maybe Florida State.
Yeah.
You know, Florida State won it in 2013, but, you know, it's going to take a while. And I don't think, again, you don't fix it with one or two recruiting classes. And getting the right coach matters. I mean, it's hard for any of us to think back this far because they've been so dominant for so long. But, you know, there was a time when Alabama was sort of wandering in the wasteland before Saban got there. Well, clearly they got the right guy, you know, but getting the right football coach matters. I mean, getting someone who can manage an entire program and can put together the kind of recruiting operation it takes. And he's done that. And you know, so finding that kind of guy, and again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a guy that you feel like you're going to win the press conference with, but somebody that has got a vision, who's willing to work, who doesn't care what you or me or anybody else says or thinks. That's just going to come in there and coach football and recruit, develop, and just not worry about all the clutter. And I think that Tennessee needs to get somebody who's thick-skinned, who can deal with the scrutiny, who's proven as a recruiter, who's proven as a football coach, and come in and just sort of say, you know what, this is my plan, my vision. We're going to do it this way. I don't care what donors think. I don't care what the media thinks. I don't care what the perception is. This is the way we're going to do it. And I think that, to me, is the most important part of this whole equation.
Yeah. You know, I'll follow it up with this. You know, and I know you don't know the answer, but we're shooting in the dark. Does Tennessee look at a guy like, you know, an older guy that's been well established and knows his way around the block and knows what he's dealing with? Heaven forbid, for lack of better names coming to mind, a David Cutcliffe, a Mac Brown, someone that's been there and seen it all. Or is Tennessee going to go, hey, let's go super young and super fun and just go over the top? I know I heard you say earlier, offensive guy, RPO like, but to me that sounds like young and fun.
I mean, again, who wants it?
Yeah,
I mean, that's what's. I mean, who do they really feel like they can get that's realistic? I mean, we can sit here all day and do fantasy coach search, and, you know, but it's who really wants the job. Right. Is that an older guy who's maybe coming off of an NFL gig? Is it a younger guy who's shown some promise? Maybe, you know, ideally, if I'm an AD at this point, I'm trying to get a mix of those guys, talk to them all, you know, see who I feel like is, again, the best fit for Tennessee, who's got the best vision, and somebody that's going to be able to come in and sort of make that vision a part of the culture. I mean, Tennessee sort of lost its way, you know, a long time ago, and they got to find somebody who's going to be able to get that back.
Yes. Well, Chris, look, man, I know you're super busy and swamped, so thank you for joining us today. And before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug or a story that's about to come out?
No, it's good being with you guys. Just you can catch me on ESPN.com. I think we've got something up today, an early, sort of an early look at what the All-American team might look like in 2021, which is obviously a projection, but it's always nice to sort of look ahead. You know, we football junkies, college football junkies, we've got a long winter ahead of us before football starts. So it's always nice to sort of look ahead and see maybe who are going to be the next stars on the horizon.
Yes. Well, Chris,
I got family in Knoxville. They all say the same thing, that you're known as one of the nicest guys in the area. I can confirm that. Thank you so much for coming on the show and being so generous to us with your time. And we're very grateful. And keep up that great reputation up there on Rocky Top.
I'll do my best, guys. Take care, okay?
All right. Thank you. Well, man, that was a really great interview, and we want to thank Chris Lowe again, because he is swamped with a lot of, internet, TV, radio, all that stuff, because he's right there in Rocky Top, right there in the heart of it in Knoxville.
Yeah, when we were in production earlier today, Stephen, we were talking about, you got to catch his interview yesterday on Paul Feinbaum. I didn't catch that interview, but you said it was a phenomenal interview that Chris did with Paul Feinbaum yesterday on the show. The craziness all of this is and I kind of realized that toward halfway through this interview, I don't think Tennessee even knows what they're doing right now. And that's not a knock at Tennessee. I mean, let's look at this, Stephen. We got NCAA violations. We're now being sued by our former coach. We have a skeleton staff. We don't even know which direction we're going to go with the coach. We have to go get an AD first. We got to have an AD that aligns with what we're trying to do and clean this thing up. We've got an AD that needs to figure things out, but also does the best thing for Tennessee. So with all of that being said, Stephen, this is, I was a little shocked when Chris said it, but it's starting to settle in and make so much more sense. I mean, this could be Valentine's Day before we have a coach. Up in Knoxville. This is crazy.
You are probably closer and know a little bit more about this guy than I do, because you're located in Mississippi. Let's go ahead and pull up this, and I want to get your reaction to this. Do you feel like Ross Bjork would be a good fit at Tennessee?
Well, this is going to be a very easy answer that I don't have to do any research for. Tennessee has some oil in its state. Texas has a lot of oil in its state.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand that the top two universities that spend money on athletics is the University of Texas and Texas A&M. Ross Bjork has basically an ATM at his disposal. I mean, you got to think, A&M just ripped down their whole entire stadium and built it back up before the season. I mean, Ross Bjork was in charge of that. That was something like a $700 million project,
right? Where
they had crews working nonstop. I mean, it's crazy to think about the money and the things that they did there at Texas A&M, how they did that whole stadium and that whole situation. So, University of Tennessee is an excellent job. It's superb, but Ross Bjork has more money than he knows what to do with. And that's a great situation I think we all want to have. I don't think Ross Bjork leaves A&M for Tennessee. I think that's a step down. That's not even a lateral move. That's a step down going to Tennessee. But I will say this, if this president can sell the University of Tennessee and bring Ross Bjork over, I don't know what Ross Bjork's making, but I mean, even if you tripled his salary, I think A&M might fight you. So, I'm going to throw out a crazy number. Let's just say Ross Bjork's making $3 million a year at A&M. It could be a whole lot less. It could be more. I have no clue. I haven't Googled it. I haven't researched it or anything. But I think A&M would fight for Ross Bjork very swiftly, very quickly. And there's a lot more oil, a lot more money, a lot more deeper pockets, a lot more billionaires and millionaires in the state of Texas than there is in the state of Tennessee. So I don't think Ross Bjork is going to be coming to Rocky Top anytime soon. Steven, did I lose you? I guess we lost Steven there before. Looking at some of your comments.
I apologize, man. I had something going wrong with the alarm, so I had to go put in the passcode for it. I do apologize, but I am back. But I tell you another, Tony Yayo, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He put another good comment on the show, and I really feel like that Bill O'Brien would be a pretty good fit up at Tennessee as one of those jail guys, kind of like what Kroom did at Mississippi State, because he was not that bad of a coach up there at Penn State.
Not bad coach. He was a phenomenal coach.
Yes.
He was a great coach. And let's call it what it is. Bill O'Brien's out because his quarterback's got his feelings hurt down there in Houston.
Yes.
And that's a ridiculous situation down there, and I'm not even going to give it credit to get into. What I will give credit to is Bill O'Brien's a phenomenal coach.
Yes.
He's not a good coach. He's not a great coach. He's a phenomenal coach. That would be a grand slam hire. That wouldn't be a home run hire. That would be a grand slam hire if Tennessee can make that happen. You know, there's so many different things. I also like Tony's other comment about Thomas Mars.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Pruitt should go out and get Thomas Mars. I don't know if that will be the case or not, but, you know, if you're looking at this from Jeremy Pruitt's point of view, he got canned. He's not getting a severance package. He's not getting his buyout. He's not getting anything. And his reputation is heavily tarnished in coaching circles. There's going to be a lot of schools that will not touch him. So, you know, this is a serious situation for Pruitt. You know, and Steven, it's sad. You cheat, and you're not even mediocre.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's what you were just about to say, my friend.
Yeah.
So we want to thank Richard Lockhart for bringing that up.
I like Richard's other McDonald's comment. You see that one?
I did. I just had it up.
Yeah. I'll take 2 apple pies.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I mean, I do agree. I mean, I think this is going to be a really interesting turmoil type investigation. I really do, and it's going to be real interesting to see with signing day coming up what the players do now. Did they commit? Did they decommit? And all that.
There was Chris shone light on that situation. I thought that there was not anybody left on that staff as far as guys that can recruit, and he listed about 4 or 5 names. You know, if man, I don't even know how you even remotely try to approach that situation. But I know Kevin Steele's a super smart guy, and he's been around the block plenty of times. He's going to know what to do. And how to do it. Is he going to do it perfectly? No. But at least he's doing something. I mean, the Tennessee recruiting effort this year, you've got to throw it out the window and just give up on it. As Chris said, you're not going to have a football coach until sometime in February.
Yes.
And I got a feeling Chris knows exactly what he's talking about. I'm sure he's probably talked to the chancellor himself, if not several members of the board of trustees, of getting a timeline of what everything's going to be going on and happening. Yeah, they're going to take a couple of weeks to figure out who their AD is. And an AD, you know, they're all thinking right now. I'll say this. If you're an AD bucking for a promotion, and forgive me, I cannot think of the AD's name at Arkansas State. He's a phenomenal athletic director. But, you know, if you're a guy like him, he's got a funny last name. I cannot think of his name right now. But you know, hey, I think you're going on and starting a search already of trying to. I would be contacting coaches already, like, hey, if I get this Tennessee gig, would you be willing to come? Kind of hit the ground running. And I think he's not going to be the only one doing it. Whoever they hire, I got a great feeling they're already contacting other coaches and say, you know, hey, give me an idea of what your assistant staff's going to look like, your OC, your DC. You know, what kind of offense you're going to run, what kind of defense you're going to run. Tell me about your recruiting, you know, how you're going to approach that. So I think when he goes into those interviews, he's got all those answers for the chancellor and the board of trustees.
Terry Mahar Jr.
Yeah, he's got a funny last name. I can't pronounce it.
But that's him. So it's Terry. So
Yeah,
A.D. Terry.
Terry at Arkansas State.
Yes. So I just wanted to pull that up so we didn't look like a bunch of idiots. But it is Terry Mohori. That's what I'm going to say.
How long has Terry been there? You got that at your fingertips that you were looking at it?
I can look it up. Yeah, hold on.
If he's been there for a while, think about the great coaches he's hired at Arkansas State.
5 years.
5 years? Let's see. Well, I guess that was after Freeze. But look at all the great coaches that have come through Arkansas State through the years. Gus was there. Freeze was there. There's been a lot of guys that make their stop there at Arkansas State. But
Arkansas State has claimed 18 conference championships under Mohar.
Wow, that's impressive. He's been there for 5 years, and he's claimed that. So that's very impressive. That's more than 3 a year. So that's highly, highly impressive. The big thing about an athletic director, and Ross Bjork is a perfect example of this, Ross Bjork might not be the best AD on doing stuff, but he's excellent at raising money.
Yes.
And the more money that you have, the more things you can do. Look what's happened since he's been hired at A&M. He's gotten a new stadium. He brought in Jimbo Fisher. How did that turn out for him this year? Pretty dang good. Again, he may not be the best athletic director, but he's raising money. He's making big things happen on campus, and they're winning games. So, A&M baseball looks to be a powerhouse this year. The girls' basketball program is thriving there at A&M. When you hire an AD, it's just not for football.
Right.
It's about raising money. It's about women's sports. It's about men's sports. It's about championships. It's about, giving your coaches what they need to succeed. And what does that cost? It costs lots of money, and you've got to go raise it.
Well, we were supposed to have Dennis Dodd on earlier from CBS Sports. Would you like to tell everybody what we ran into?
Yeah, Dennis was having a little bit of technical difficulties with his laptop, and we were trying to troubleshoot with him over the phone. I thoroughly enjoy Dennis's work. Dennis is going to be scheduled on Friday. Hopefully we can figure that out for him, the situation. But, we were going to have Dennis Dodd, one of the best writers in college football, and we're going to have a senior writer from ESPN on today's show. That's a massively big show, Stephen.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see how everything turns out. But I know that instead of having Dennis and Chris tell us basically the same thing back to back, we get kind of space it out a little bit. And, I'm kind of thinking we should do a Valentine's Day show and ask Chris Lowe to come on because hopefully things will be settled up on Rocky Top. Because he said mid-February,
yes,
things will be kind of settled down. So maybe we should go on and text both of them to come back on. Thanks to you, Stephen. You taught me this. Valentine's is on a Sunday this year.
Yes.
So the 15th will be a Monday. So maybe for our Monday or Tuesday show, we can bring those guys back on.
Absolutely. Well, man, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. Now, we apologize for being late, and we also apologize for being a short show today. But Friday, hopefully, we will have a full show. Now, we actually do have Rennie Curran, a former Bulldog player, coming on to talk about his playing days and what he's doing right now. And then we're also going to have Wes Rucker of 24/7 Sports, Go Vols, up there at Rocky Top. He's going to join us to give us any updates about the Tennessee situation.
Stephen, I was just looking at my phone, something that popped up, ESPN, and guess who posted it? Our great friend Chris Lowe at 2:56. So he must have just posted this right before he came on. Source says Alabama's Nick Saban targeting ex-NFL coach Doug Marrone. for staff, hopes to finalize deal soon. That was one of the big names that Tennessee was hoping for to be head coach. Tennessee not to panic on this great story. Up. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, not to panic on any of that because a coach will easily leave a staff to become head coach at NC University. That's not going to hold Tennessee back at all. But that's the thing with Doug. They're saying that his father-in-law is some big shot, big wig, big something. I can't remember if he's on the board of trustees or chancellor or provost, or I can't remember what he is up there. I'm sure Google will have your answer. But Doug Marrone was kind of getting the push to come to Tennessee. And I was talking to a Tennessee fan earlier today. That they said that name won't excite the fan base. A two-time former NFL head coach and was the coach at Syracuse. That doesn't excite you? A two-time NFL head coach, you're going into major NCAA sanctions? How many schools get an NFL head coach to come looking at their school, much less a two-time NFL coach of two successful franchises, and you're not excited about it? Give me a break, Tennessee fans.
And let me also pull this up before we go. Tom Wingbermule. I'm gonna hopefully Wayne Bermule. Hopefully I said it better this time. Look there, Jeff Fisher. Now there, of course, was a notification that Jeff Fisher might be actually interested in that job up there as well. So how do you think Jeff Fisher would do up there in Knoxville doing college football, not the NFL?
I think Jeff Fisher is a great coach.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand how funny Jeff Fisher is. I am not a Tennessee Titans fan. I have never been a Titans fan. I'm fixing to show my age. I still look at the Titans and I still see the Houston Oilers. I couldn't stand the Oilers as a kid. Couldn't stand them. But you look at the Titans and Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher, a very stabilizing coach. Does Tennessee need stabilizing? Yes.
Yes.
He's a great X's and O's coach. Does they need that? Yes. He's a very funny coach. Would a fan base be rallied by a guy that makes them laugh all the time? Yes. Jeff Fisher would be a great addition to the University of Tennessee. He's been out of the game for a little bit. There's not a doubt in my mind Jeff Fisher would take that job. Not a doubt in my mind. Now, is Jeff Fisher going to win you a national championship? Probably not. He's a USC guy. He's from Southern Cal. He's got a lot of Southern Cal ties. I know when he was coaching the Titans, his name came up every time a job opened came up for USC.
Hey, man, never say never on a national title. You never know. It's college football. You never know.
Yeah, but Jeff Fisher, are you kidding me? Tennessee fans, I don't even understand why NFL folks are considering Tennessee, but if they are, you should be super excited.
Go. Yep.
Yeah, and I like Richard's comment, the most recent one.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Hey, Richard, I can answer this one very easily. It's Clyde Price, man.
Yes.
Artie's Angels out of Pensacola. It's rolling, baby. It's rolling. That's That Mike Price is going to be the biggest joke of anything. Hey, how crazy is that, Stephen?
What?
Alabama fired a coach that never lost a game. What do you think about that?
That's insane.
So
he never coached and he never won nor lost. So.
That's right. I mean, I remember when all that stuff went down. That was, you talk about an embarrassment for Alabama. I was a very young reporter when all that stuff was going on. Artie's Angels was a gentleman's establishment. That's what they are so called. There you go, Richard. That's exactly right. Richard's comments are killing me today. Oh, yeah. Artie's Angels, Pensacola, it's rolling, baby. The hotel tab that got ran up on the school credit card. It's just bad. That whole situation.
And he never recovered because he went to UTEP and then got fired from there.
Yeah, well, he was successful there at the beginning at UTEP, but of course the Miners are not really known for being successful. But it was quite interesting of how all that played out. Again, Stephen, I'm a guy who believes in second chances. I don't hold people to the lowest point of their life. I believe so much in second chances.
Yes.
But man, Mike Price really messed that up bad.
Yes.
I tell you, he came in the first day and he burnt half the fan base. I remember Mike Price came in and said, I want to be the best coach that Alabama's ever had. And I remember so many Bama fans were highly offended by that. And I was kind of like, I get what he's saying. I agree with what he's saying, but you can't say that about the Bear.
Right. Well, man, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope everybody will go back and watch it and share it. And we will be right back here on the Stingray Show at 1 o'clock, hopefully on Friday.
Stephen, what did you learn on today's show?
Whip. It is a work in progress, my friend.
I learned that McDonald's has good fries from Chris Lowe. I learned that we're not going to get a coach up on Rocky Top until the middle of February. And I learned we have got the funniest fans that watch this show and chime in. So thanks to you guys for watching and chiming in.
Yes, absolutely. And without further ado, we will see you guys on the Friday edition of the Stingray Show. Until then, God bless.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end